Hi, this is a Drafthouse Diary for Thursday, August 17th, 2023, when I came out here to the Alamo Drafthouse at Westminster to see the movie Oppenheimer once again. This time I saw it in the 4K digital projection. I'll have a few comments about the movie, but also a comparison of the 4K projection to the 35mm projection that I saw at Aspen Grove. Hang on a sec. So, a second viewing of Oppenheimer. I've already reviewed this movie, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the film itself, although I will note that it rewarded a second viewing, as a lot of Christopher Nolan movies do. It was so long, and there was so much detail and intricacy in the plot and the plot structure and what was going on, that there were definitely things that I took away from this viewing that I hadn't really quite understood in the first viewing. And there are still a few things that I didn't understand, like where a certain person in the Senate confirmation hearing got the information that he was able to testify about. That was the big earth-shaking revelation to so many people. How did he know these things? But all in all, I understood a lot more of what was going on politically and legally, and I don't know that there was more that I understood about the core story about the Manhattan Project, but there was definitely a level of detail that it was nice to have a chance to appreciate watching again. One of the main reasons that I saw it a second time is that I wanted to see it in the two different formats. The first time I saw it, it was on 35mm film projection. This second time was in the Alamo's more common 4K digital projection. And I wanted to know what were the differences for a movie like this. There were some differences. They were not big, they weren't dramatic, unlike the 70mm IMAX version, which is Christopher Nolan's preferred format for this, which had a lot of aspect ratio changes and other things that I understand were very important to the way he thought the movie could ideally be seen. These had a standard aspect ratio throughout the movie. I would love to see it in that 70mm sometime, but I believe the nearest theater that was available in that projection was in Texas. And I like movies, but I wasn't going to travel several states away for the sake of seeing this. This 35mm version that I saw earlier on, there was a certain richness to the color that the digital projection did not have. Of course, there's that film grain, but the digital projection, it was crisper, it was clearer, I think it was a little brighter. If I had to choose one or the other, which one I enjoyed more as a cinema experience, I would say it was the 4K digital projection. It was more, I was never distracted by the presentation. I felt like I was getting images presented to me in the way that they were intended to be seen, putting aside that 70mm IMAX option. To be honest, I think the 35mm version of this movie, at least, was kind of a gimmick. The only reason to choose 35mm for this, I think, is nostalgia, sort of, because this is a film format that would have been available in the 1940s and 50s when this movie is set. It was interesting to see this. I hadn't seen a 35mm projection of a recent movie in a long time, and seeing it with film scratches and cigarette burns, little marks for the real changes, those kinds of things. It was fun to see those. There was so much of that, though, some of the scratching and the like. I had to wonder, are these actually artifacts of a film that wasn't handled very well? Or have these been added to make it feel more like you're watching an older 35mm projection when that was the height of cinema technology? I don't know the answer, but it was distracting, not just because they're no longer familiar, but it was distracting to see those artifacts when I was watching it in 35mm because it raised those kind of questions for me. So I'm glad I saw it in both formats. There are some movies I will probably seek out in 35mm, either alone or to do a comparison with digital. But when I have to make a choice for a movie in which the image is so very important and there are a lot of interesting effects, for example, a lot of interesting visual effects in a period piece like Oppenheimer, I would choose the digital projection, and I'm a little bit surprised to hear myself say that, but there it is. Other parts of that trip to the Alamo. The pre-roll I don't know if it was exactly the same pre-roll that I saw when I saw the 35 millimeter version in the Littleton Aspen Grove Alamo Drafthouse. It definitely had lots and lots and lots of the same parts. The only reason I'm not certain is that in the middle, or late middle of this pre-roll, there was what seemed like an extended piece about the films of Christopher Nolan and the kind of visual and structural vocabulary that he uses. Very, very interesting. I think I would have remembered that had that been part of the pre-roll that I saw in Littleton, or maybe I was just distracted by a server or something when that was playing in Littleton, so I'm not certain. But it was good. Pre-roll was good. Lots of things, again, about the impact of atomic weapons on popular culture, and some bits of an interview with Oppenheimer and other things that really sort of set the stage, not only for what happens in this movie, but for what its impact was later on. The only food I ordered at this screening was some coffee and some chocolate chip cookies. They've changed their chocolate chip cookie recipe from what it was months ago. For one thing, they're listing it at a lower calorie count on the menu, and I think maybe they're a little drier. It could all come down to there being a little less butter in the recipe. They're still very good, and if anything, they're more of a crisp chocolate chip cookie, which I happen to like. It was a fairly full screening, but the staff was still very efficient and very friendly. All in all, a very good visit to the Westminster Alamo, which is one of the more comfortable Alamos I've been in. And thank you for joining me for this Drafthouse Diary. If you found this interesting, please click like. And if you want to see future Drafthouse Diaries, please click subscribe. In the meantime, enjoy your movies, and when you do, stay till the end of the credits.